Hello, everybody. I got very quiet before we were even ready. I'm very impressed. But I will ask our communications people. We're ready to roll. Okay. Very good. So I want to welcome you today to our Connect Carolina Town Hall for HR and Finance on behalf of Brian Smith, who's my counterpart in Finance, and I'm Matt Brody in Human Resources. This is a series of town halls whose purpose is to inform you of sort of continual updates and progress on our Connect Carolina HR and Finance implementation. Our go live is October 1. I'm sure they'll have a fancy chart in there that will relay the remaining schedule, but I think the underlying message is that we're getting much closer. There's a lot of activity going on, and we want to make sure that folks out on campus are well informed in general in terms of what's going on in the project, and also how pieces of this will impact each of you in your areas, because many, many folks will obviously intersect with our new HR and finance systems. So let me begin to move us through our presentation. In terms of today's agenda, Brian and I are going to tag team. I'm going to start us out and talk a little bit about the timeline and the various project activities that are going on, and then we will have a series of folks from the project team talk about several topics. One of them will be cutover plans, which is really going to begin to speak to how we move from our current legacy environment over into all of the new systems and all the moving parts that kind of sit between that transition of turning out the lights on the old and turning on the lights of all the new systems. It's a very delicate dance, and there's really almost thousands of details that go into that cutover, and Fran Dykstra is going to talk to us from ITS about that. Scott Jackson and Patsy Oliver are going to spend some time talking about business intelligence. The essence of that really is reporting how the departments, the schools, and the central offices will extract information from the new system. There's a lot of exciting work going on in the reporting area, business intelligence area. I'm old school. For me, it's reporting, Scott. But Scott and Patsy are going to talk about that. And then Anita Collins from ITS is going to get down to talking about steps that you all are doing and will be doing to actually prepare for go live. And I imagine that'll speak to some training and other sort of readiness activities for the schools and divisions leading into our go live. And then we will end up with some time, we hope, where Brian and I will take some questions. So that's our agenda for today. Again, I'm Matt Brody from the Office of Human Resources. And just some quick notes for today. We are webcasting today's town hall, so those viewing the webcast can hear questions. In order for them to be able to hear the questions, we need to ask you, if you're going to have a question when we get to the Q&A period, to please step up to the microphone, and you can see a microphone there and there in the front of the hall. Please do that so that the audience out, the virtual audience, hears the benefit of what you're asking. If you are viewing the webcast, there is an opportunity to submit questions via the feedback form on the project website, and you'll see the link to that on the PowerPoints that you should be viewing now. And then the webcast recording will be posted to the project website in a couple of days, which is always reassuring to me if I misspeak, that it will be recorded in posterity for everyone to go back and hear whatever misinformation that I gave you. But anyway, a plug for the project website, the ccinfo.unc.edu, not only with information from today and the stream that would be available, but really a whole bunch of information on the project that we encourage you to visit. So I did my first plug to the communications folks for the project website, because they're always asking us to highlight that. Just a reminder in terms of some basics, most of you will know this, but HR and payroll and finance will join the student system, which is also called Campus Solutions. That in totality represents Connect Carolina. So remember when we say Connect Carolina, although we're talking today about finance and HR payroll, in totality it also includes the student system, which has been up for some time. Major changes, just to highlight a few, this is by no means the total list, because there are lots of changes as a result of this implementation. But the chart of accounts on the accounting side is changing from the simple FRS being our legacy financial system, that structure to a more complex and more flexible chart field in PeopleSoft. I think there'll be a lot of added functionality on the chart of account side, but it is more complex, and so there is going to be a learning curve. Hopefully our training is going to be addressing that, but for those of you who deal with accounting on the HR and certainly on the finance side, do expect the first few months, all the accounts and object codes and things, you're not going to be using these anymore. It's going to probably take me a month just to stop saying object code, meaning what it means now, and translate it into what it is going to mean in PeopleSoft. So change is hard. It's going to take a little while to adjust to that. I think one of the other high visibility changes is that department numbers are changing from 4 to 6 digits. So the number of departments, and actually the number of departments that are created is going to grow significantly because we're beginning to use department numbers in different ways to enhance our reporting and business intelligence effort. And that ties into some of the work that Scott is doing. There are going to be new business processes. So, some of the workflow that you're accustomed to today is not going to be the same. Some forms will change, even some policies will change that reference legacy systems. So we all have to be ready, and some of this will be as of day one, some of it will be incremental in the weeks following go live, but there's going to be a lot of business process change. An implementation of this scale is not just going to mean you're looking at new screens, but also means that the way you do various business processes will fundamentally change. And again, you have to be patient. There's going to be a learning curve for all of us when we're accustomed to doing a particular process a certain way for the last 20 years. In October 2, that changes. Concepts for entering and retrieving data, how you go about getting information into the system, different screens, different menus, different code structures and terminology, and certainly retrieving data. Some of the tried and true reports that maybe you've used in the past and are really comfortable with aren't there. There'll be new reports available from within PeopleSoft, and a wealth of reporting capabilities, quite honestly, quite advanced over what we have now in the business intelligence and reporting environment that Scott and his team are working on. So I think it's going to be very robust, but there's a lot of new to that, and it's going to take time to adjust to that. I think the reporting tools feeds into that. And then funding sources for person, department, and account information. Not only are the chart field itself changing, from the current account structure, but how you use those chart fields in different business transactions, whether they're on the HR and finance side. You may be accustomed to entering them in one place, now you're going to enter them in a different place, and how that interacts with the system and impacts how things are reflected in budget and general ledger may change. So, the bottom line is there's a whole lot of basics here in terms of how we do business that are changing. No one will be an expert on day one, not in the central offices and not in the campuses. And I say that, and we say that for 2 reasons. A, you need to be patient with yourselves as you learn all of this stuff, but you also need to be patient with your colleagues, both in other departments, in the schools and divisions, and in the central offices. We're all learning this with you. That means that, some of us learn more quickly than others, so it's going to take some time. It may take a little more time in the beginning to get business done, and quite honestly, sometimes you may call with a question, and it may, someone may have to get back with you where before it was something they'd have been able to answer very quickly. Be kind to your colleagues. We're all going through the change together. We'll all get there. On day one, we're not going to be experts. On month 1, we'll know more. Month 6, we'll know that much more. The end of year 1, this will be a process where knowledge will build across the campus, and we'll get accustomed to all these new systems and procedures. In terms of the project timeline, design and development of the system components completed in May. Much of that even occurred earlier, but there is also some just-in-time development that was being pursued right up, before the summer. As we get into the May and June timeframe, system and payroll testing, and that completes in June. And a tremendous amount of time and effort right now is going into system and payroll testing. Really doing testing, continued testing on individual components, but more importantly, testing end-to-end on how the different pieces of the system all interact together. So when we enter a pay raise all the way downstream in HR, we make sure that raise is accurate all the way through. It gets charged to the right account, and the right dollars get in the person's check, that they deposit and get deposited in the bank for them. So a tremendous amount of time on the testing side which obviously is critical to make sure when we go live in October, things are working as we expect them. Also in July, August, user acceptance testing, and sometimes it's hard to delineate. There's really many different phases of testing, but I would say each of them, as you go from sort of the blue bar to the purple bar, I would say that the complexity of the testing and in some ways the expectation of the outcome raises. We're more accustomed to testing individual pieces in the system and payroll testing, more likely to see errors that we're trying to resolve. As we get into user acceptance testing, we're expecting things to work much more seamlessly, expecting many things not to error as we would see in earlier portions of the testing. So on one hand, it's all one continuous quality assurance effort to make sure everything works as expected. But each month, as we get between now and October, we're testing more, we're testing harder, and we're testing with an expectation that the pieces will work more seamlessly. So, as we get down to user acceptance testing, this should look like it works just as if you're using it in October, and the testing is getting less scripted. Earlier in the testing, we told folks, click this, click that, enter that. As we progress in the testing, we're more and more going to have folks, certainly in the HR side, I'm not as involved in the finance effort, just go ahead and get in the room and enter some transactions, and we're not going to script it quite as much. So a lot of emphasis, continued emphasis on the testing. You're going to hear about the cutover plan, which is how we begin to end or bring down the legacy systems, get transactions that are in the legacy system pipeline completed, shut down, and then bring up PeopleSoft. From 9/16 to October 1 is when that cutover is going to occur, and you'll hear more about that from Fran in a few minutes. And then finally, the date that I personally have been looking forward to for 6 years is the go live. And we are closer now. Whoops, a little time now. We are closer now. Okay, so I may need a technical support. So it's not going to happen in PeopleSoft, but happening here. Oh, very good. That wasn't so hard. Okay. And then finally, as I said, in October is the go live. And you're going to continue to get a whole lot of information and updates on sort of dates that are when things are happening in particular. We're talking in generalities here, but when are the dates that transactions have to stop being entered in the old? When are the dates that transactions can be entered in the new system, and so forth? A lot of detailed planning is going into how all of these steps are being orchestrated. We have 104 days to go live, and that really isn't much considering how much work that we have left to do, and we're trying to make good use of every single hour of every day. And I think this is probably a good slide, though, to recognize there are hundreds of folks sort of on the core project team who are working incredibly hard and diligently and really deserve our appreciation. I mean, the amount of effort that these folks are undertaking is really impressive, and some of them are in this room, and I want to convey our thanks to them. What we're testing, in a word, everything. So I guess the kitchen sink is a good exemplar. Do all the business processes work? So do all the business processes tie into the system workflows that are contained in PeopleSoft and in Gideon Taylor for the HR side? Can we generate payroll accurately, even the most complex aspects of payroll to the penny? And there are particular tools that are being used to compare legacy payroll outcomes to the new PeopleSoft payroll results, and to make sure that they're accurate, and if there are any differences down to the penny, that they can be explained. And in most cases, there shouldn't be. Another piece is capacity. Can the large number of users access the system at the same time? We're going to have thousands of users hitting PeopleSoft and Gideon Taylor at a given point, and we want to make sure that not only does it work, but that you're not sitting there for 3 minutes after you hit the enter key waiting for the screen to refresh or for the system to say that the transaction has been accepted. That ties into how fast the system will work. Not just in terms of the end user experience, how many seconds when you hit something or hit a menu option or click, but also the batch jobs that run overnight, that payroll and general ledger and posting all the transactions. We need to make sure those things run timely. We don't want to find out a key process takes like 15 days to run when we need it running overnight. So all of that kind of testing is underway now. And finally, is the system secure from attacks? There's obviously a lot of information in our system that is confidential. There are other aspects of the system that are not confidential, but you don't want people getting in, assuming an unauthorized role and initiating inappropriate transactions. ITS is working with some outside providers to actually attempt to break in to our system, our PeopleSoft environment, and identify vulnerabilities, and that's also an important part of the testing. Who is testing? The answer to this one is a whole lot of folks. We've got central business office folks, administrative staff, and most importantly, campus users. So, we can't do adequate testing if it's just central office folks, and we can't do adequate testing if it's school division users. Each of them really utilize the system in a different way. So we're making sure that there's involvement from testing on both to ensure that all of these folks understand how the system functions relative to their area, and also for a lot of folks to be able to visualize how the system works for real hands-on versus just PowerPoints in town halls that we've done over the last several years. So I think one of the things that we thought would be helpful today is for you to hear sort of an in-person testimonial from a couple of folks who participated in the testing experience. And so we're going to bring up LaShanya Williams, and you are here, so come on up. And you're going to come up to the microphone. Why don't you introduce yourself and your role, and then tell us a little bit about your testing experience.
Okay, I'm LaShanya Williams. I'm the Assistant Dean for Human Resources in the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm going to turn around so I can see everybody. All right, and so I was involved in 2 rounds of testing, and so we were allowed to have some test scripts that we went through to do different types of personnel transactions on different employee types. And going into the testing, one of the biggest questions or concerns that I had was, is the system really going to be able to do what I need it to do in order to do my business? And so it was really helpful for me to be able to get my hands on it and to really be able to process some things. We had one employee who went through a full life cycle, so they started out as a temporary employee. They got hired into a permanent job. They got a pay raise, and unfortunately had to be terminated due to the fact that they passed away. So it was an adventurous time for that employee, but it was really nice to be able to kind of go through the system as a whole and see how things work. And then in the second round of testing, we also got to see the workflow. So I got to see when I enter an action, how it flows through the system for approvals and what that looks like for me as a user. So that was really helpful for me. It was also helpful to see how integrated the system is. So we had some data that was pulled in on some actual real people who are here on campus, and it was nice that when I pulled up an individual, I could see that they were a student here, that they had another job on campus, that they were an affiliate. All these attributes about the person were in this one place instead of having to have 3 or 4 different systems up to kind of find out bits and pieces about one employee or one individual. It was really nice that the system kind of pulled it all together. It was also helpful for me to start thinking about what I can do about my current business processes to prepare for go live. So being able to get into the system and test, and then start to think about what are the things that I need to do in my school division to kind of prepare to make the transition pretty smooth. And I think overall, a lot of the concerns that I had were alleviated. So the system does do what we need it to do as far as we can tell. There are some things that are going to look a little bit differently and have to be done a little bit differently than what we're comfortable with, but I don't think it's anything that will be too painful for anyone. It'll just take some time, as Matt said, to kind of get used to the new terminology, some of the new business processes, that type of thing. But otherwise, I felt like it was a pretty successful experience. I think my advice, or what I would take away from it, is that it's going to be really important to understand the business processes and understand the policies and procedures that underlie the processes as well. And so I think in preparing for that, departments and schools can start to think about making sure that their folks kind of understand the why we do what we do. But as far as being able to do it in Connect Carolina, I think, we'll be fine. We'll take a little adjustment period, but otherwise I think it'll be good.
Thank you, LaShanya. I appreciate that very much. We're going to ask Jennifer Blair to come up. Jennifer, you'd introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Blair, and I work in the School of Medicine, and I don't think there's anything left for me to say after that wonderful speech, but to be candid, that countdown clock used to flat out scare the crap out of me. And I'll have to say, after testing, I did sit 4, I did sit 5. My first question was, is this going to look like FRS? Do I have to put these digits in, and some magic number is going to appear? But it's a really user-friendly system. It's menu-driven. You click and drill down. Sometimes the menu paths are long, but you can add it to your favorites, which is awesome. So then it's 2 clicks away. The biggest fear for me were the chart fields would help us. There are 10 of them, I think, right? 10 of them. How are we going to know the right one to choose? The lovely Connect Carolina team put together a reference document for us that had all these guides on if I'm in the school of medicine, I choose this, or if I'm in the college, I choose this. And it really gave you a path to get in the general area. And then once you're in the system, there's a search function, so you can put a specific name like Keenan in, and it'll pull back all the search values relative to that. So after go live, I look at the clock a lot differently now, and I'm ready to rock it, so let's go.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you both. I mean, I do want to also convey thanks to all of the campus folks who participated in the testing. There were a lot of them. They're continuing. That's ongoing. There's a lot of time that takes to sort of interrupt your regular job, and we're all very busy. But I think the involvement of campus testers is absolutely vital to us assuring that the system will work effectively. And there's actually been a huge amount of feedback, even from the earliest test sessions, that really helped us troubleshoot issues with the system or things maybe we thought could work a certain way that needed to be tweaked. So that was immensely valuable. Appreciate the both of you just being willing to speak up today, but to all the testers. In terms of the testing effort, sort of the final goal is sign-off from the business owners. That's folks like Brian and I and folks who work in the central offices, that the system works as expected, and that the feedback that we hear from campus testers and our stakeholder committees has been appropriately considered. And that's what we're sort of heading up to, I imagine, in the September timeframe, where the final decision would be made that the results of the testing are satisfactory. Not perfect. Nothing is perfect. We're going to have bumps in October, in November, in December. But the goal is to minimize those and to try to foresee and address as many things as we can. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and step aside and let Brian Smith, who is my colleague on the finance side, continue with our agenda.
Can everybody hear me? First of all, I'd like to build on what Matt said and thank everybody for coming out this afternoon. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for your time away from the office. I know everybody here is busy, and we very much appreciate your interest and your time. I would like to real quickly go off script for just a second and recognize a special guest that we have here today. I'd like to mention we're joined by our new Vice Chancellor for Finance Administration, Matt Fajak, right here on the front row. Matt joins us. He's been here for a week and a half.
Yep, 10 days.
And joining us from the University of Florida, where he was the Vice President for Finance and CFO, so just wanted to make mention of Matt. He's out today. Wanted to take, well, first of all, when I first got up here, the first thought that popped in my head was I felt kind of like I'm in church and everybody's choosing to sit on the last row of church when I looked out into the audience. But beside that, though, looking at what I wanted to build on today was, first, one of the things that we're working on right now for Go Live or putting together that would be of interest to you guys is a help desk function that would be under the 962 help desk in the ITS area, and that this would be available to central and campus users, and it would be available for and cover the HR. It would have support for the finance support team. It would have HR support as well as support for InfoPort. So we're working to put that together so when we do go live, 962 help will be available to help everybody with questions that come up about PeopleSoft, whether it be finance, HR, or for InfoPort. A couple of things that I wanted to do today, building on what Matt was doing, just kind of talking about the environment leading up to go live, and once we go live, just to kind of talk a little bit about, a couple of reminders about the background. just ask folks to keep in mind that, we're putting in an integrated system that's going to integrate HR, finance, and campus solutions. And just kind of thinking a little bit about our institution, we've got close to 30,000 students. We've got close to, I'm not sure what that is. What's that? We've got close to 30,000 students. We've got over 10,000 employees. We're engaged in such activities as teaching, research. We run a campus bookstore. We have a utility operation. So I say all that just to say, when you look at the scale, scope, and complexity of the institution, and we're putting in an integrated system, it takes a significant effort to do that, and it's a very complex exercise. And that everything is in the system is going to be related. So, for example, as we look at creating a person during hiring, that's going to obviously rest in the HR section. But when we want to do a funding swap, somebody who may be principally a finance person will be doing a funding swap in the HR modules. Tuition and fees, which are billed in the student system, will roll into the finance system. So all this to say is we're putting in a very large task in front of us. We are a large, complex institution, many moving pieces, and this is going to be a system that kind of connects all those different pieces. A couple other things that I wanted to mention or ask folks to keep in mind. Day one, the systems that we're using today, for example, the payroll system, which has been in place close to 45 years, and we've had 45 years to perfect the payroll system. We've had close to 30 years to perfect FRS. So, day one, when we put the systems in, we're putting them in with, the goal to get, to pick up with the tasks that we're doing in the old system. But, just keep in mind that day one, we're starting with a new system. And just like with those old systems, the FRS system, the payroll systems, those systems had to evolve over time. So just as you begin to get exposure to the systems, or some of you who are involved in the testing process, and as some of you start to gear up here soon for training, just keep in mind as you start to use the system that it's a constant working process. So what you see day one will evolve over time. A couple other things that I would like to just kind of highlight, kind of more from a qualitative perspective. We are in a time where there's substantial change going on, and just want everybody to know that, we recognize from a central perspective, the folks on the project team, we all recognize that, this is a substantial undertaking. It means a lot of change for us. It means a lot of change for you. We're all in this together, but we recognize for everybody, it's definitely change, and change is unsettling. We've asked folks kind of as we move forward, keeping in mind the context, keeping in mind, the challenges. We would ask folks just to, this is a work in process over time, and just ask folks to keep a positive mindset. I'd also want to emphasize, as we've talked about here throughout, that, this is an integrated system. We're all in this together, central folks, campus folks. We're all in this together. We're going to all be going through this together, learning together, helping each other, and just keep in mind that this is a team-based environment. As I mentioned before, we're going to have the help desk in place, which will be available to folks with questions as they start to use day one, use the PeopleSoft system to do business, and as things come up, that will be an available resource to folks. And just how to close, I think the important thing I'll say here is, perspective is going to be key. I know we all work hard. I think it's important as we approach our jobs that way, that particularly through this period of time, a sense of humor or perspective will definitely help go a long way as we kind of work through these periods together. With this, at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Fran Dykstra from Enterprise Applications to talk about our cutover plans.
How's everybody doing? Some of you are way back there, right? So it's nice to be in an air-conditioned space on a hot day like today, isn't it? Okay. So we are going to go live. I know you've heard that before, but this time it's really true. Okay. I need to explain to you that this is not like just flipping a switch. We have many steps. So we are working with a cutover plan that has several thousand individual steps to it. What we're doing is we have to take all the transactions in the legacy systems, payroll, FRS, the HRIS, and EPA web system, and all of those transactions that are in flight, we have to get them to write down, right? Close them off, get them down. The ones that are still in progress, purchase orders that aren't complete for an entire year, we need to recognize and figure out how we can enter them in the new system in the same state that they were in the old system. We need to get the new systems all set up and working. Many, many steps for that. There are some things that are configurations, some things that are conversions, some things we have to validate data to make sure that if we start out with $3 billion over here, we get $3 billion over here, right? So there's a period of time during this process when we are going to have to shut down some of our old systems and the new systems won't yet be available. We have worked very hard to minimize those periods of time so the campus gets good service for as much of the time as we can, but there is a limit to what we can do. So let's talk about that. The dates are this. We're running the last legacy biweekly payroll on the 16th of September. We're running the last legacy monthly payroll on the 19th of September. And no, that doesn't mean you're getting your paychecks early. On the 15th of September will be the last day that you will be able to enter central airfare billing, or in the CAD system, to enter web travel, the old web travel or web rec systems, to make check requests, to put in small orders in the ePro system. That will be the last day until the new system comes up that those processes will be able to be done. On the 17th of September is going to be when the last of the HR transactions will be entered in legacy, and we'll cut off entry into HRIS and EPA web after that. We are keeping it, so the one thing that we're keeping open the very longest is the ability to use ePro to go out to vendors like Airgas to put in orders for scientific gases. So that is coming up done, at 5 o'clock on Friday the 26th, and we'll be down over the weekend and on the following Monday and Tuesday. Now, why do I tell you all of this? So you can plan ahead, right? If you have big procurements to do, if you have transactions or hires or other transactions that are going to be complete, that need to be completed during that period of time, you need to plan ahead so they get done by that time. We'll be able to pick things up in the new system after that. All right, we're going live on October 1. You know, I felt pretty good about being able to start with October 1, and I was talking to a group of people, and they said, okay, what time on October 1? Is this doing? I said, man, some people you can't make happy, you know? So we're going to go for early in the morning on October 1. That's what we're going to go for, right? So we've talked about the in-flight items. We've talked about the many items that we're going to convert over, but a lot of those in-flight things have to be re-entered. One of the things that we're going to do, and you can expect to get communication from us in the next couple of weeks, is we're going to issue instructions to you on all of these transaction types so that you will know when you get to next fiscal year what you should do. I'll give you an example. So Sometimes when graduate students get hired for assistantships in September, our department will go in and set up payment vouchers for them for each of the months throughout the semester, right? So fine to do that for September if you get it done early in September, but you don't want to set up October, November, December because those would have to be re-entered in the new system. So we're going to get a set of instructions out to you so you can plan how to handle your transactions when it comes to setting up things for next fiscal year and next academic year. It's really important for you to inform your faculty and the other staff in your office of these dates so they can plan ahead. You know, I've worked in universities and higher education for a pretty long time, and somehow all of the institutions that I've worked at have often had a few people who had a hard time telling the administrative staff about plans they had made months ago that need to be executed tomorrow. Oh, that probably doesn't happen here, right? So it's important to get this information out to your faculty, your staff, your deans, your department chairs, so they can plan too, so they aren't frustrated by not being able to get the things done that they need to get done during the September and early October timeframe. We are conducting full rehearsals. So, you know, when I've been here now, let's see, 7 months. And we have done, we are beginning work on our 4th rehearsal of the cutover. And let me just say that it hasn't always been that smooth, but it's getting better and better all the time. This is about as complicated as putting on a Broadway show, perhaps more complicated, but because there are a lot of players involved. But each of our rehearsals, we're getting slightly better at it, so that when we come to go live in September and execute all these jobs in September, we expect them to run fairly smoothly. Our final preparation is for user acceptance testing, which Matt already told you about. So we are doing a couple of things there that we haven't done in the past. One thing we're doing is we're going to actually practice running with loading users just as we will when we go live. So in the past, when we tested, we've entered the individual names of people. Now we're actually putting together databases of spreadsheets of information that we're loading into the system to make sure that works properly. We're going to be testing both central office users are going to come in and test their functionality, and campus users will test theirs. So here's kind of the way we're trying to choreograph this. On the week of July 7th, we're going to bring in a bunch of campus users to put transactions into the system. On the week of July 14th, we're going to bring in central offices to process those transactions that were put in by the campus users. On the week of July 21st, we're going to have people look at reports, campus users, and campus users in particular look at reports on the transactions that they entered into the system, so they'll be familiar with where those transactions show up on our reporting environment. We're testing access request and termination form. So I don't know how you request access for users to the FRS and HRIS and EPA web systems today, but moving forward, we're building a functionality into InfoPort that will allow you to find the person in the system, indicate the functionality they need access to, and for what departments or particular areas, submit that for approval, and then it will automatically be routed to the appropriate people to get that access set up. We'll also be able to use that form to terminate access. So if you've used Remedy in the past, or if you've had to find a particular person in your department who can help you with that in the past, we now have we'll have an online form for that. We're testing security and access. We're really spending a lot of time testing reporting. We're doing a complete test of our nightly batch jobs that run overnight so that you can enter transactions during the day without contending for resources with those big batch jobs. We're trying to complete all of our standard operating procedures for our central offices and address any issues that arise. So that's what we're planning to do in user acceptance testing. We're setting up a mission control for cutover and go live. You know, I don't think it's going to be quite like the one down in Houston, Texas, but you know, we'll try to go for as much technology as we can, of course, because we're IT people. It's going to be an ITS manning. We'll have all the people working on this project who need to execute tasks to cutover in one room. After we go live, we'll have daily phone calls with tips and other people providing help to users of the system to find out where the pain points are, where folks are having trouble, so we can try to come up with systematic answers to those. We're trying to put together systems to gather your input, your questions, your concerns, so we can address them promptly. As Brian has already mentioned, we're going to have a business systems help desk. So in addition to calling the help desk for IT problems like Microsoft Office or email, you'll be able to call them if you aren't quite sure, you know what your FIS charging instructions were and you're not quite sure how you figure out what your new charging instructions are. We're going to communicate via updates on our website, newsletters, Twitter, and Facebook, although let me say that I think somebody may be impersonating me when that happens because my thumbs just are not as fast as my daughter's. So we're going to communicate the best we can to try to keep those channels of communication open to help you. We've put together a checklist to help you prepare. And so these checklists, we've disseminated these checklists to the major operating unit leads so they can plan and prepare for go live. These are plans for purchasing things like I talked about air gas, right? So if we need to figure out when to tell faculty members that they have to get their orders in so they can get their air gas delivered on the 29th and 30th of September, that should be on the plan. Similarly, we need to make sure that everybody knows if you're trying to access the system from off campus, you have to have VPN installed. So all of these preparations can be done ahead of time. This web-based tool allows us to get new information out to you easily, and it allows you the folks in your office to monitor how well you're doing towards getting ready. As I said, it's been shared with the major operating unit leads on the finance side and HR officers. If you haven't heard about it, you can go and talk to them and find out more about it. It can be shared, and you may be delegated tasks. Here's what it looks like, just like an Excel spreadsheet. Gives you the ability to say, I'm 50% done with this or 75% done with this, so that you can keep track of how ready you are to go live. All right. You still awake out there? Okay. Scott Jackson and Patsy Oliver are going to talk to us about business intelligence. And no, that is not a contradiction in terms.
Yeah, it's a fancy term, though, isn't it? So, can everybody hear me? Who was here at the last town hall meeting? Raise your hands, please. Who remembers that we did a reporting session at the last town hall meeting? Anybody? Can anybody tell me how long it lasted? It was 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So if you paid attention for those 3 minutes, you're going to see the same thing. But what we thought we'd do is just take a few more minutes and kind of talk a little bit more about reporting in a longer way.
So one of the first things you want to think about when you think about reporting is really there's two kind of sections of reporting, if you will. There's the ERP or production reporting. This is real-time reporting. This is what we do for audits and kind of official reporting. The central office people are the ones that will most use this type of reporting. And then the second type of reporting is off of the warehouse. So what we're going to do is warehouse, and this will be mostly campus users that will use this type of reporting. This will be a lot of operational reporting done through this. Your FMBO 95 will be done through here. You'll be able to do trending and analytics, so it's got a variety of methods you can do reporting. We've also adopted a new tool. I think Matt mentioned some of the stuff we're working on. It's called SAS Visual Analytics. It's kind of a new age, new generation tool that will really make reporting, I think, easier, slicker, better looking, and also let you do analytics and kind of some deeper stuff with it. So one of the questions we keep getting is, what about legacy? What about historical reporting? We're doing a couple things along this line. We're actually taking the historical warehouse and we're tying that together with the current warehouse, and we're kind of building a bridge, if you will, to kind of tie those two systems together so that if you need to look at data over the last 10 years, you'd be able to do that. We're going to again use SAS Visual Analytics to kind of layer on top of those two software systems, and then you can do the legacy reporting or the longitudinal reporting. We also have actually converted data. So we've converted 5 years of grant data, we've converted 15 months of non-grant data, and then 15 months of payroll data. So all of that data has been converted into the ERP system. We've then pulled all that data out of the ERP system and loaded that into the warehouse. So you have a significant amount of data that you can still look at the current warehouse. And then we've also looked at HR actions, historical HR actions in progress. We've converted those over to a new system, so you'll be able to get at those either through PeopleSoft or through InfoPort. And those will be fairly secure, so that'll be limited to who can get to that data. Another question that keeps coming up is, what about developing reports? Who's going to be able to develop reports? There, of course, will be the central IT group that develops the majority of the reports, but we're also distributing that capability out to the different schools and MOUs. So at each school at MOU, you should have somebody that's designated that can actually develop these SAS Visual Analytics or PS Query reports, and then they can distribute that out to the school. So you guys will have your own mode or method of being able to develop these reports. And then if we all think that they make sense to kind of centralize and provide to the rest of campus, we'll take those reports, bring them into our group, and then we'll kind of quality assurance check them and then implement them across campus. So we'll be able to utilize those for everybody. Another question is, what about InfoPort access? So we know we've got the ERP, and you're going to get access for the ERP and be able to see reports. But what about InfoPort? And remember, InfoPort's going to be the driver for many of these campus reports. So essentially everybody that uses or accesses the reports will need to go through InfoPort and be able to see these reports. So to get access to InfoPort, InfoPort's a distributed system. So essentially we at the central group will allocate somebody out in the school who then is kind of the administrator of InfoPort. So they are then the ones that grant access to InfoPort for everybody throughout that school. So we take it out of the central group and we distribute that out to the schools. So what you all will do is you'll have a form and you'll be able to request that access through your central group at your school or MOU to be able to access InfoPort. And we already have, there's many, many InfoPort users out there right now, so probably 20 plus schools and MOUs are currently using InfoPort. So we'll reach out to the other folks that are not using InfoPort, and we'll make sure we work with the MOU or school leads and kind of get you set up. Where's our tech support here? We're good? It was me. No. So where are we? So reporting kind of came to this game a little bit late. We really didn't start until August of last year. So unlike Matt, who's been here 20 years, we've only been here like 11 months. So we've actually accomplished a fair amount in that 11 months. We've built the architecture out. We've acquired a significant amount of hardware and software in order to support these new tools. We've configured the whole system. And we are about at least 50% plus through the development of the reports. So we've done a significant amount. We've developed many reports. We're going to have many reports available at the UAT time, but we know that's going to kind of continue on. So our intention is to complete the rest of the reporting requirements we have currently defined. Those will be ready by the time we go live. And then I think we all are aware that once we go live, you guys are going to come back to us and say, I need this report and I need this report. So we will have staff available to kind of continue to grow these reports out. So I'm going to kind of take you through InfoPort and show you some screens through InfoPort. Again, this is mostly from a campus user perspective and how you'll be able to see the different components. So once you log into InfoPort, many faculty, when they log in, or PIs, will actually have a dashboard, and that'll tell them information about their grants, that'll tell them information about the staff that are either reporting to them or are being paid off of their grants. They have cost code information, so if you guys are cost coding out there, that'll be tied so the PI can see their cost codes. And then they have an access request system that lets them access leave time. It lets them request various things, like even if you're going to do a new hire, they can do that through InfoPort. It does not connect all the way through to ConnectCarolina, but it is a good internal use for communication. And then across the top, you'll see there's many applications that are tied in InfoPort. So we really cover finance, HR, students, and faculty, and kind of put that under one umbrella. You'll see we've got a finance section. This is really for the new finance system. And then we've got an account section, and this is for the legacy. So you'll be able to go into InfoPort and look at any new information about finance, and then if you need to go back 10 years, you could go into the account section and look at data back 10 years. The same is true for HR. So we've got what we call an HCM at the time. That's current HR data. And then the HR component is what is the legacy HR data. So again, you'll be able to see the current and past number of years. And then there's a faculty component and a student component, and then a couple other tools that I'll show you a little bit of. So on the finance side, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So we've talked about the chart string and the chart fields and the budgeting, and that's all pretty tricky to do. So we've tried to simplify that as much as we can. So essentially we gave you a screen that has a set of the chart fields. So if you need to look at transactions and accumulate transactions kind of at a higher level, you can come into this screen and you can select a particular fund code, account, department, any of these, or a combination of these, and that will return you back the set of transactions that are associated with that set of chart fields. It'll also show you a total and accumulate that for you. And then if you need to drill down and you need to go and look at a specific project, program, or any one of the cost codes, you can come in here and enter those here too. And what that'll do is then show you just that set of transactions associated with that project, for example. And it'll show you the budget, expenditures, and kind of show you the total for each of those. The other piece we've got in InfoPort for you current InfoPort users are we really essentially have a departmental accounting system. This lets you do things like salary projections, soft encumbrances, and then cost code tagging. So what we've built in here is the capability of additional tagging. So we know you could be able to tag in the PeopleSoft system, but there may be certain scenarios where you actually need to do additional tagging within InfoPort to tag specific transactions. So you can do that within InfoPort. So we show you all the different transactions. Again, you can filter on those and then enter your cost code. On the HR side, what we've tried to do is create a kind of a mini data warehouse concept. So you have the capability of all sorts of filters. You can narrow things down based on department, based on type of employee they are, whether they're ETA, faculty, and then you get a list of the type of employees that fall under that group. And then you can drill down into the employee and see the details. The other thing you can do is extract that data. So what we've given you the capability of doing is select the fields that you want to extract, and then you can pull those out into either Excel or you can drop them into a PDF. So very similar on the position side. Currently position capability is not within InfoPort, but we have that reporting capability now with PeopleSoft. And so the same type of thing, you'll have your number of filters, that brings you back a list, and then you can also export that to Excel too. And then if you drill down, you'll see the more detail of a particular position. So you can kind of select any position, any employee you want, and see the details. So on the, this is a sample of the SAS Visual Analytics. And so what this shows you is this is just an example of an average salary screen. But it shows you across the top here, you have the capability of doing all the selection again. And then on the left side, there's additional selection components. And then within the middle here is really the graphical representation of the data. And then we show the detailed data down below. So if we wanted to select a specific department, we just pull down on the selection menu, select that department, and then it blows it up and brings it up in detail. So you can, each one of those sections, you can actually expand those. And then the last thing is, you have, of course, you have the capability of exporting all that data to Excel. On the student side, we have the capability of looking at various students, depending on what you want to look at. If you want to look at the term, you want to look at a department, academic plan, you can do the selection on any of that. That brings you back a list of the students, and then you can drill down deeper into the student information too. And then we have reporting capability on the student side. So similar to what we saw on the HR, you can select, this is an example of a class report. So again, it has the selection filters at the top, the graphical representation, and then the data, detailed data below. So lastly, one of the things we've tried to also build into InfoPort is a data dictionary, a way for kind of make it easier for you guys so you can understand the different information out there. So what this is a list of all the different screens and fields within finance, and there's actually about 97,000 fields, but that'd be a little bit tricky to scroll through. So I've selected down to just one particular screen, and it shows the long description of each one of those fields. And then if I wanted to narrow that down and look at a particular field, I just select the field, and then it brings me down to that field description. And then a couple other things we're working on is for the chart fields. We know these can be fairly complicated, so we've actually given you guys a list of all the different chart fields out here, and you can just enter either the chart field code or the text, and it'll bring back the code. But this is a quick and easy way of kind of looking through and seeing the different values, if you will, for the chart fields. All right, now the entertainment for the show here.
I think you just like it because I think I'll report to you.
Yeah.
For those of you who know, Scott used to work for me, and now he thinks I work for him, but that's okay. So I'm going to show you a quick query, and just so you know, I also thought it'd be a nice way to kind of plug the portal. I really like the portal. This is going to really make it easier, and it's hard to see down here. It's really going to make it easier for you to navigate the system. This portal is really nice. So you'll notice on the left, under finance, you have access to kind of click and get right to where you need to go. So that way you're not scrolling through menu after menu after menu, which for those of us who like ugly green screen mainframe systems, this kind of gives us a little bit of a navigation tool to get where we need to go without having to go through a lot of windows. So one of the things that I had done is Scott actually allowed me to write a query, which is surprising because he doesn't like me to play too much. So I wrote a query, and I wrote it out of KK, which for those of you who don't know, KK is commitment control. So that is where all your budget and expenditure data lives. So we're going to spend a lot of time as campus users in KK. Also, a lot of, obviously, the central office users will use it too. So for me, I love to download everything to Excel. So I clicked on Excel and came back with a lot of data. And when I first looked at this data, I was like, oh my gosh, what all did I get up here? So it's very small, so some of you may not be able to read it. But then I quickly kind of took it and I said, okay, let me try to kind of put this into a summarized data. So I took Excel and I put it into a pivot table. Those of you who know me I love pivot tables. So I can look at the funds and the source and go, oh, okay, well, this is state funds, this is academic affairs, this is health affairs, here's my state budget, here's my encumbrances, and here's my F&A budget and encumbrances. So you can get down to the detail, or you can roll it up using, obviously, a tool like Excel. I did not do, in this demo, I did not do Envision. We're busy at work, or I should say, our programmers back at the office, which Scott actually locks them all in cubes and does not let them leave till they have finished a report, just so you know. But they are busy doing Envision reports, especially for central office, because there are things that, while I'm a campus user, I also lived one time, years ago, many, many years ago, in central office, so I know what it's like to be in the budget office or to be in the controller's office and, you know, have to run a report and say, okay, you know, how much cash do we have today? So they have to check that cash balance, the banks. Those types of things have to be done day one. So those programmers, some of them are consultants, are all busy over there really working. As well as meeting with the BAs. They have weekly meetings trying to make sure that everything is ready for day one. Now, another thing that has to happen is testing InfoPort. So Scott's group is also, he has another group that's off campus that he hides away and he locks them in the door and doesn't let them leave. They can go over to Nantucket and get a drink, but that's it. They are busy trying to get the ETL, get the data warehouse up so that we can test InfoPort. Because you know what? We've got to test that before we go live. It's starting to make me a little nervous when Fran has those days going up. But I know it's all going to be good. The next thing is SAS training. Scott's going to be offering some SAS training in July and August probably. So I'm really looking forward to that because I love data. For those of you who don't know me, I'm kind of geeky like that. I just love data. So I can't wait to get my hands on SAS and really do some dashboards. I've been hounding Scott for at least 3 to 5 years about dashboards. I really want to be able to give for my dean or even for the provost or the chancellor. They need to be able to have a dashboard that goes say, okay, where do we stand today? You know, where are we at on indirects? How much money do I expect to bring in next year? So I can really do some budget planning. That just gets difficult in our current environment. So I'm really excited about that. The data warehouse, as I said, you know, Scott's doing things like, you know, he'll come in and say, well, we got to watch scope. I hate that word scope. You know, how much bandwidth do we have? He knows I hate that too, because I'm like, you know, can we not have everything day one? No, unfortunately, we probably will not. But he really is working really hard on data warehouse. He also talks about an ETL, whatever the heck is ETL. Basically, that means we're getting data out of PeopleSoft into the warehouse so that we can access that data into a usable format and make it quick and easy. As I said, we're busy creating reports. Now, I did have this really neat video, so I'm going to have to improvise a little bit. But Scott and I have this ongoing struggle with paper. So what we would like to do is be paperless. So our goal is with InfoPort and all these dashboards that you can just walk around with your iPad, you can create notes, and you'll be paperless. But if you ever go out to the YouTube, go out there and Google funny toilet paper commercial, and you will see that maybe we won't be totally paperless. Because for those of us who do reconciliations and accounting, we still like to print paper. So one thing you have to remember is we love that paper and we like that, you know, to check everything off, make sure, oh yes, this cleared, this didn't clear, and then you have that paper files. So we're trying our best to make sure that you can have paper, but you can also have it electronically. And your iPad hopefully will become your best friend, except for if you go watch that video. And unfortunately, everybody's sitting in the back, so they won't be able to see this. But you can see on my iPad, there's toilet paper. So we will not be paperless 100%. So I will turn it over to Anita. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Want to talk to you a little bit today about getting ready for Go Live. And so the project, heard a lot today about the project team and all we're doing to get ready, but as you know, and I'm sure it's getting to be the top of your minds, that you guys have to get prepared as well. And so I want to talk about 3 things fairly quickly. The one is the importance of training. So lots of activity going on in that area, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Want to push the CC Info site, again, promote it as just a great source of information to help you get ready. And then also talk about your first day a little bit about how getting into Connect Carolina is going to work. So again, training is super important for helping you get ready. So the more people who receive training, it's just going to make the entire Go Live go more smoothly because there will be lots of resources to help solve those really difficult problems. The easy stuff will be handled, and you'll have a good foundation for starting to use the new system. but training is also required for access to the system. So again, in the effort to make everything go as smoothly as possible, training is required. So just keep that in mind. We do have over 4,500 people who need training in some form or other, and we want to try to do that training as close to go live as possible. So it's a big number that we have to get through training in a relatively short period of time. So one of the favors that we ask you is that please make your best effort to attend the training that you need to attend. So there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for makeup sessions. So again, lots of people to get through training. So a lot of times we only have the opportunity to offer a class one time with very few opportunities for makeup sessions. So please try to have perfect attendance for your training sessions, and we'll get everybody through and get everybody access to the systems quickly. Okay, so now you're wondering, so how will I know which classes to take? And there is a lot of activity going on around this right now, so if you don't know exactly which classes you're taking yet, that's okay. That's coming very, very soon. Some people have already gotten the word and others are not, and it's going to take a little while. But your training and implementation partner will put you in classes and let you know which classes you need to take. So the training and implementation partner is, we have one on the HR side and one on the finance side from every school and division on campus. So they have been just absolutely phenomenal during the project in making sure that your school and division has the training that you need and that the right people are identified in the right classes. They're also helping get data ready. They're helping with testing. So they've just been great. So they're the key point of contact for which training you will take. And so you're saying, well, who is my tip? So maybe you don't know who that is. Well, I'm really glad you asked, because that transitions into the next part of my presentation, which is to talk a little bit about the CC Info site. So CC Info, we're building out more and more content out there. It's just a great resource for information about what's going on with the project and what you need to know. So I just want to point out some of the more useful points, parts of the site. So one is, who is my tip? And so to do that, to find that out on the CC Info site, you go to the Training tab and you click Tips and Trainers over on the left. And then there's two lists. There's one for finance and one for HR. So you can see who your tip is if you don't know who that is. You can also find out more about the training. So another link on there is the Connect Carolina training course description. So there's the list of all the courses that will be offered, whether it's through computer-based training, which is the kind of training that you take at your own pace on a website, or instructor-led training, are listed there. So you can click that link, and it gives you this long list of courses, which we're only showing just a couple there. You can click on the link for the name of the course, and it gives you a detailed outline. So I don't know if any of you guys have discovered that yet, but that's how you can see all the training that's going to be available. Another good place to go is on the About tab. You can see, if you're wondering what systems are staying and what systems are going. So on the About tab, if you click on Key Changes and look at systems staying and going, and then you'll find out that, for example, People Admin is staying, but In-Depth is going, and lots of other systems there. Also, the recorded webinars. So if you missed the webinar on the new chart fields, for example, or there was a PeopleSoft 101 webinar which talked about general navigation, or the past town halls, including this one, you'll find them again on the About tab under Webinars, and then, for example, there's the one on chart fields. So there's lots of information, recorded information out there. Also, if you go back to the home page, there's a place there on the home page, the first page that you see when you go to the website, that lets you sign up for the Connect Carolina newsletter. And so you don't even have to remember to go out to the website. It'll come right to your inbox, and they'll give you the latest news, what's going on with the project, good information about the cutover, payroll testing, lots of information available, and it comes right to you. Okay, just one more. So if you haven't had a chance to do this yet, there's a feedback button again on the home page. And if you click the green Submit Feedback button, a window pops up and there's a box for you to type questions or comments, concerns that you have, and each one of those gets addressed. So just want to point out that it is anonymous unless you choose to put in contact information. So if you have a question and you really do want an answer, be sure to give us your email address in that contact box. But otherwise, if you want to just give general feedback, you don't have to, it can be completely anonymous. So again, that's the ccinfo.unc.edu website, so be sure to take a look and stay in touch there. Then on a slightly different tack, my last thing that I wanted to talk about is, now this is our last town hall before Go Live, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how you'll get into Connect Carolina when you get ready to start using it, when it does go live. So how many of you currently use the student systems? So good, okay, great. So you guys are already familiar with this. But you're going to go to a website, if you're not familiar, you're going to go to a website called ConnectCarolina.unc.edu, and there's a green button on that website, and it will take you into the home page. This page, which is also called the portal, it's just a doorway into Connect Carolina, and it gives you access to all the options. And we've been talking a lot about how it's an integrated system, and if this shows you exactly what that means, in that everything that you need to do in Connect Carolina, you see on the same page. So if you have access to HR actions that you do, you would access it from the same page. If you do finance transactions, you would also access it from the same page. So it's integrated, it's all in one place. So the buttons there on the left will take you to the options that you need. That's just one of the ways that you can go. I want to talk in a little bit more detail just today about some of the options that we're all going to have access to. So that self-service button there, if you guys can see that, if I clicked on that, it would give me a long list of options that are shared by everyone who accesses Connect Carolina. I'm not going to take us through that whole list, but just going to focus on a few that are important to us. So one is your pay stub. So this is one of the ways that you're going to be able to get to your pay stub. And your pay stub is going to come from a new system. It's going to come from Connect Carolina, but it's going to look just the same, so no worries there. You'll still get an email when it's ready. You'll still get an email letting you know. You'll be able to go into Connect Carolina and see both your old pay stubs, even though they didn't come from Connect Carolina, and the ones that were generated in Connect Carolina. And as the guys talked about earlier, there's lots of testing going on around payroll. So they're matching down to the penny and going through multiple iterations of making sure that payroll is working correctly. And just FYI, Tim is not changing while we're on the subject of payroll. So, okay. You'll also go through those main links, through the self-service links, to sign up for classes through the Office of Human Resources. So these are those classes like change management and presentation skills, communication skills. So you'll use a link from that homepage to sign up for those classes. You'll also be able to see your current enrollments, the ones classes that you signed up for through Connect Carolina, and you'll be able to see your training history from before Connect Carolina. Also a change a system that everybody's going to have access to is if you purchased through the IPS software acquisition site before, that is actually being moved into Connect Carolina, and a catalog is being built. So if you shop staples through eProcurement, this will just be another catalog on that main page. All faculty and staff will have access to this catalog, but there is an approval process, so it's not free shopping. It's just, it looks kind of like this. So here's the home page, and it says North Carolina Software Acquisitions, and then it will pop up a catalog, and I searched on Adobe products there, but so those are a few things that we'll all experience, and all changes that we have, and some common things that we have access to in Connect Carolina. So just to wrap up, so remember that training is required for access, so please be kind to your trainers and show up for class and make sure, so that we can make sure that everybody gets the training they need. Remember that ccinfo.unc.edu is a great source for information, so you can always go out there and learn more about training, about what's going on with the project. And that remember at Go Live, you'll go to connectcarolina.unc.edu. Okay? So we can answer questions about training, but I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Brian, and they can take questions in general.
All right. I've got one. Thank you. All right. Well, I want to thank all of our presenters. Hopefully some of this information was useful. As we've done at the other town halls, we're going to open it up for just any questions or comments, and depending on the nature of that, either Brian or I will field it, or we'll go to one of our subject matter experts in the front row. So why don't we open it up for questions? And I should have mentioned earlier, and I had asked, we've got over 200 folks joining us virtually by stream, so that was a good turnout. But do remember, based on that, if you've got a question, come up to the mic and make yourself famous. You can be on the web and give us your question. And I guess you're going to feed us any questions that come in virtually, is that right? Okay. Anyone brave enough to ask a question after getting all of that information? No questions at all. Everything we've discussed today is completely clear. This would be a first for me, but that's good. I'll give you all a minute, because then we'll do a going, gone, and then conclude. All right. Oh, we do have. All right. So you need to come on up and step up to the mic, if you would. We'll give you a minute to get up there.
Oh, you brought it. Thank you.
Mic's coming to you. Very good.
Which of those systems is going to replace, like, Financier? I don't care for the data warehouse. It doesn't give you enough information.
Okay. So I'm going to let my colleague from finance and possibly Scott, but we'll let you get started there.
I'm going to quickly turn it over to Scott to field that question.
Yeah, you need a mic. You all need HR to answer that one, Scott?
Yeah, we'll circle it right back around.
I hear you.
Currently, you would use InfoPort, and that's the way we've kind of designed it in the new world. And you can bring down all the same transactions, because believe me, I've had to do that. And you can go back in time and pull, like Financier, you can pick a year at a time. There's filters currently in InfoPort where you can pick the same time frame and download it to Excel, similar to how you do in Financier. So it's actually a little bit easier, because in Financier you have to cut and paste, and with InfoPort you can actually, it just exports to Excel. Okay.
Yeah, my sense, and as each month has passed, I've gotten to see more and more snapshots of the work that Scott's doing and his group in InfoPort, and really the other reporting tools. I mean, there's InfoPort, there's InVision, the SAS Analytics. My sense is that, given our current reporting capabilities, both on the HR and finance side, although it'll be different, it would be orders of magnitude more powerful. I believe, and based on what I've seen on the HR side, and I was involved in the development of the legacy HR data warehouse, that we're going to be able to retrieve not only more information, more types of data, but to extract it in more forms, to use it in a more graphical way. I think that the whole reporting picture, the business intelligence picture, as you refer to it, is going to get much more sophisticated and capable. I think it will take time, both in terms of the user learning curve, and also some of these tools will only be as valuable as more data accumulates in the new PeopleSoft platform, although you'll be able to obviously report on some legacy as well. Historical data, I mean, on day one, there's only going to be so much data in PeopleSoft. There's some converted data. But I think we're going to take a giant leap forward in the reporting area. That is at least the perception based on what I've seen to date. You owe me lunch for that one, Scott. There you go. Okay. Other questions? So, all the way up there, so we're going to get a mic to you in just a minute. Someone is coming your way. You're going to go up there, okay, that's fine. I'm glad I didn't have to carry the mic all the way up there. It's a long way.
Thank you. Where is the training going to occur? And if it's off campus, what transportation options are you going to make available for those of us who don't have cars on the campus or don't even have cars at all?
Okay. So we're going to ask one of our folks involved in the training effort to respond to that one.
So the training delivered by the project team is primarily, for campus, is primarily going to be held at the Center for School Leadership Development, which this is a building that's across the parking lot from the FIDE Center. So there's actually great bus service between here and there. It's like an express bus, the FCX I think it is, runs between campus and there. So Your training and implementation partner on the finance side and your campus trainers are also going to be teaching some of those classes. My understanding is most of that training will be on campus. I think the med school is planning to hold it at the Learning Street Training Center. Looking at Patsy, I can't remember the exact name. Learning Street.
At the airport, and there's a bus system.
Okay. So, for Patsy said there's a bus system as well going out to that training center. So if you're in the med school, that's where that training will be. So for central offices, the training will be on campus. So mostly at AOB.
And what I would say is, in general, not knowing what unit you're in, if you have, with all that information at hand, if you have a concern about transportation, talk with your training and implementation partner. There may be the opportunity to carpool for multiple people from the departments going, et cetera. So if you have a challenge with the transportation piece, depending on the location of your training, and again, the training is occurring in different places, start with your school division training and implementation partner. If you're not sure who that is, go to the CC Info website and that will identify them for you. Okay. Yes.
Brian, given the cutoff of 9:15 on processing check requests, and we know that there's going to be a delay in how we process in the departments and then up to central office, are we going to communicate that we may not make net 30 to our vendors so that they're aware of this going forward?
That's a good question. I know that Becky's been very intimately involved with the cutover planning, and I'm going to ask her to speak to that issue.
Hold on, we got to get your mic.
We will work with our vendors to notify them that we're switching to a new system as well.
Other questions? Hands? Anybody?
I think there's one right over there.
Ah, yes.
In the interest of transition and being able to access our old data in the way we're familiar with, how long will Finance Senior and the green screens be available to users after go live, after October 1? I know in the student world, we left the student system up for several years just to, keep our eyes on it if we needed to refer. We found that we didn't as often as we thought we would, but in the interest of us, being a little nervous in the beginning.
Yeah, they'll actually be available indefinitely, so we don't have a cutoff time yet, but they'll certainly be out there for a period of time and let you guys have access to them.
Yeah, and I sense your question was primarily focused on finance. Let me mention for those in the HR community that there is a legacy action history function that actually looks just like the action history function presently in EPA Web. Is based on that. It has all the EPA action history in a format that you would be familiar with from working with it today. We're also adding to that utility all the data on the SPA employees subject to the State Personnel Act, all the complete action history there. That'll be available both through PeopleSoft, the Gideon Taylor electronic form interface, as well as plans underway to make that available through InfoPort. So on the HR side, there will be a robust and easy-to-use capability to go back in time because, to your question, and certainly in the HR world, this is true as well, when you're planning a personnel action, a lot of it, you're planning to give someone a raise or a reclassification or something else. A lot of your decision is what did we do last week, last month, last year, 3 years ago, et cetera. And so all of that information will continue to be made available on the HR side as well. Okay, other questions?
So I've got, I just want to weigh in on this a little bit. So although we have not been planning to have FRS or the payroll system available to people, we will keep that system live for inquiry through the fiscal year end close of 2015 so we can make sure that we've got a clean close. We are not thinking about sunsetting the HRIS or EPA Web immediately either. Certainly we will keep them up through the end of the calendar year for tax reporting as long as we need for that. It is, of course, important for us to sunset those systems because we need to reduce the costs of continuing to maintain those systems. But we will keep them up and available to Central Administrative Office users to support those two calendar year end for the payroll and a fiscal year end for the financial transactions.
Good clarifications, Fran. Thanks. Other questions? Yes, one up there.
Hi. We recently went through the EPIC training, and I know times for that were from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. So I was wondering if anybody knew how early or how late the trainings were going to run.
We'll let Pat.
Hi, I assume you're in School of Medicine? Okay. So I do not do 7 a.m. I do surgery budget meetings at 7 a.m., but I really don't like 7 a.m. Actually, surgery even likes to do 6:30. We will do, it'll be more like 8 to 5, and actually we're going to try to do 8:30 to allow you, if you need to catch a bus to get out there. Most of the training, we're trying to really design it, and Lauren, who's over there, is really working hard, because School of Medicine is probably, I think we're having to rent 4 rooms for the entire 30 days just to get everybody trained. So it's huge for us. And what she's done is try to design it where you'll either be there first thing in the morning or all day, or you'll be there at like lunch and after. And there is a nice place where, there are bathrooms and food and those types of things, and parking, which was key as well. So, yes. Yes, RDU. It's actually at the mall. So if you knew where the outlet malls are, it's right out there, and it's a really nice facility. We have a security guard. We have computers. It's really a nice facility. For all of the people in School of Medicine who did EPIC training, that's where all the EPIC training was held. Because our only other option on campus was to rent space from the business school, which also meant we had to rent laptops. And that was a huge maintenance and a huge cost that right now we couldn't afford. So.
Okay. Other questions?
So an important point about this training is that we are going live in the on October 1st. So that's the September-October timeframe. And those of you who support investigators and researchers on our campus will know that that's also a very busy time preparing grant proposals. So I would ask you to keep in mind and work with your tips to make sure. Many of you may have commitments and requirements for training at the same time as your investigators are counting on you to help them prepare new grant proposals that I think need to be submitted. I think the submission deadline is October 6th. So please work with your tips and try to keep in mind that we need to get both done, so schedule with that in mind.
Thanks, Fran.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Well, I'd like to, in closing, actually thank from earlier both Jennifer Blair and LaShanya for sharing their experiences with PeopleSoft so far. I appreciate them getting up and sharing that. I'd also like to take a minute to thank Deborah Bauer and Anita Collins for their help in putting all this together and the material and the logistics and whatnot. And I'd like to thank everybody again for taking time from their busy schedules, for their interest, and for coming out. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.
Good job.
I was.